Have you ever received an invitation that sent chills down your spine? Well, I have. A nondescript envelope arrived one day, carrying within it an unsettling proposition. An invitation to spend a single night in an abandoned asylum, notorious for its ominous past. A place where the walls whispered of despair and the air was heavy with the imprint of unspeakable horrors. Who sent it? The sender remained a mystery, shrouded in the same murky shadows that clung to the asylum. The invitation was as cryptic as the asylum itself, promising nothing but an experience that would test the courage and curiosity of anyone daring enough to accept. The asylum, once a symbol of hope for the mentally tormented, had transformed into a place of dread. The stories surrounding it were enough to make one's blood run cold, but curiosity, that insatiable beast, got the better of me. I decided to attend. Little did I know, that decision would change my life forever. As I began to research the asylum's history, I found a tale steeped in horror and tragedy. The asylum, a foreboding structure standing in desolate solitude, was once a bustling institution, home to thousands of patients. But behind its cold stone walls, a nightmare unfolded. In the early years, it was hailed as a beacon of hope for the mentally ill. But as time wore on, the mask of benevolence fell away, revealing a face twisted with malevolence. The asylum became a theater of nightmares, where the line between treatment and torture was blurred. Stories surfaced of inhumane procedures and unethical experiments carried out in the name of science. Electroconvulsive therapy, lobotomies, and ice pick surgeries were performed without consent or proper anesthesia. Whispers of patient abuse echoed through the corridors. Unexplained deaths were swept under the rug, adding to the growing specter of dread that loomed over the institution. The asylum's inhabitants were reduced to mere shadows of their former selves, their spirits worn thin by their relentless torment. The asylum's closure, shrouded in mystery, brought a chilling end to its reign of terror. But the echoes of its dark past refused to be silenced. They lingered, a chilling reminder of the atrocities that had taken place. The asylum's past was a haunting melody that played on the strings of my apprehension. The harrowing tales had set the stage for my impending visit, amplifying the sense of foreboding that gnawed at my nerves. The night arrived, darker than I had ever seen, and with it came a sense of foreboding I couldn't shake. The ominous silhouette of the asylum stood stark against the inky sky, an imposing monument of forgotten despair. As we approached, a chill ran through me, not from the biting cold, but an unseen presence that seemed to permeate the air. The asylum, once a beacon of hope for the mentally afflicted, now stood as a monument to the unknown, a haunted testament to the past. As we stepped inside, the air grew colder, an unnatural cold that seemed to seep into our very bones. It was as if the asylum itself was warning us, telling us to turn back. But we pressed forward, driven by an intoxicating cocktail of curiosity and bravado. The asylum was a labyrinth of darkened corridors, silent save for our hesitant footsteps and the distant echo of our own breaths. But then, odd occurrences began. A sudden drop in temperature here, a faint whisper there, an inexplicable feeling of being watched. We saw shadowy figures flit in our peripheral vision, only to vanish when we looked directly at them. At first, we laughed it off as pranks or the product of overactive imaginations. We were in an abandoned asylum after all. What else could it be? But I knew, deep down, that these were no pranks. The feelings of unease grew stronger, the whispers louder, the shadows more defined. It was as if the asylum was coming alive, awakened by our presence. I could sense something sinister at play. The cold spots were not just cold, they were devoid of life, of warmth, of hope. The whispers were not just sounds, but fragments of tormented souls trapped within these walls. The shadowy figures were not mere illusions, but remnants of the past, forever bound to this place. As the night wore on, the strange occurrences intensified. The laughter and bravado faded, replaced by a growing sense of dread. The reality of our situation began to dawn, the veil of denial slowly lifting. It was becoming clear that we were not alone. As the night deepened, so did our fear. Something was amongst us, a sinister presence that sent shivers down our spines, a cold whisper in the dark that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. We were not alone in this forsaken place. The air grew heavy, thick with dread and the unmistakable scent of something otherworldly. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by an echoing wail, a cry of anguish that seemed to resonate from the very walls of the asylum. It was a sound that could curdle blood and freeze the heart. The entity had made its presence known. Paranoia gripped us, our minds filled with horrifying visions of the asylum's past inhabitants. Their anguished faces, their despairing cries, their pleading eyes, all seemed to be projected onto the canvas of our minds by this unseen tormentor. In the midst of this psychological terror, physical harm befell us. Scratches appeared on our bodies, doors slammed shut, trapping us within this labyrinth of horror. Our screams echoed through the empty halls, swallowed by the darkness. Panic ensued. We were rats in a maze, desperately trying to find a way out. But the asylum had closed its jaws around us. The entity reveled in our fear, feeding off our desperation. We were in its world now, and it was not a kind host. As dawn approached, our hope dwindled, but we weren't ready to give up. Strands of first light seeped through the broken window panes, casting an eerie glow on the dilapidated walls. The chilling echoes of the entity still reverberated in our ears. It was time to make our move, to confront the unseen terror and claim our freedom. We gathered together, huddled in the cold, sharing our collective resolve. We spoke to the entity, our voices trembling yet resolute. We acknowledged its tragic past, the pain it had endured within these walls. We offered it peace, a release from the torment it had been trapped in for decades. As our words filled the silence, a profound calm descended. The entity, once a terrifying presence, seemed to recede, its energy dissipating as the sun began to rise. We survived the night, but the haunting memories of the asylum would forever lurk in the shadows of our minds.